What is cracking, everybody? It's MegapiemanPHD here, and welcome to another Jumpstart developer interview. Today I'm going to be talking with Gabriel Priske about their Kickstarter project for See No Evil. How you doing today, Gabriel?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. So why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what it is you do?
Yeah, so I'm Gabriel Priske. I'm the lead developer on See No Evil. I've been doing 3D art for 5 years now. And I recently left my job at Trendy Entertainment to start my own studio, and See No Evil is kind of the first project that we're doing. It's a sound-based puzzle game, so you're going to be moving around the world and using sound manipulation to complete the puzzles.
That's got to be quite the change going from a bigger company to out on your own. I heard on your video on your Kickstarter page that you'd actually been working on this game for a while before you decided to fully go straight into its production.
Yeah, I mean, going indie has kind of always been the plan. The job at Trendy Entertainment was great. I loved what I did, and I love doing 3D, but it's always kind of been the plan to start my own thing. So pretty quickly after getting to Trendy, I started working on See No Evil with a couple guys, and now that it's getting closer to being completed, I decided to take that next step. You know, once my finances were kind of in line, and that's part of the reason we're doing the Kickstarter now, is there isn't income and it is all out of pocket. So the Kickstarter is a way for us to kind of feel safe and eat food while we while we make this.
Yeah, that's always important. That was one of the things I was wondering about. You talking about how this is your first game that you're working on outside the company. I was wondering if you're going to be doing it by yourself or with other people. Are the other people you're working with from the same company that you were with before you decided to go indie?
No, they're all actually people that I kind of met along the way. I had done quite a bit of freelance work before I got to Trendy. And so like the sound guy, Luke, is a guy that I worked with years ago and just kind of kept in touch with on Skype. And the programmer, John, is a good friend of mine who has been doing game dev for as long as I have or longer. And so it's just kind of a group of friends that I had. And when I told them that what was going on, I was like, you know, like, I'm ready to get started on this and I can pay, so let's do it. And they were all really excited. So,
were they all on board the project from the beginning, or did you start it by yourself?
I started by myself. I mean, I did GDD stuff and got some basic artwork done on my own, and then so I could have something to show them.
That definitely makes sense. You wouldn't want to just jump into a project without having any idea of what you're doing.
You'd be surprised how often that happens.
So you guys are only looking to raise $2,000. Now, compared to other people I've talked to who are trying to raise money in the upwards of $50,000 to $75,000, even using things like Ouya's Free the Game campaign, in which they'll match your Kickstarter amount as long as you put your game out on Ouya before, that's really not a lot of cash.
Yeah. So we wanted to make it really clear that we are almost done. The game is really close to being finished. I was very intentional about designing the game from the beginning to be something that could be completed, because I know that a lot of the times when people go indie, they end up having projects that are a little bit too big for them to do. And they end up starting a thing and getting people excited about it, but then not being able to finish it. And I know what that feels like, and so I wanted to make sure that See No Evil could be done. So the game is very, very close to being done. And this money is really just to kind of push us along to allow us to get it out and make sure it's everything that we need it to be, kind of polish it up. So this is frosting on the cake money. The game will be done. This is so that we can make it everything that it needs to be perfect and enjoyable for you guys.
And that's definitely good to hear. I did play the demo that you have available on the Kickstarter website, and it was pretty well polished, considering the fact that it was only a demo, and it's definitely something good to see for a Kickstarter. It's something that I've been seeing more often in Kickstarters, are people who are going to Kickstarter more to make their game better, not just to make their game entirely, instead of some people who basically have just a vague idea of what they want to make and are asking for a lot of money, which never really works out.
Right. I mean, I think we've all kind of had Kickstarter turn out to be something that we don't quite expect it to be. I think we've all given to projects and then gotten something back that isn't really what we thought it was. And Kickstarter has kind of come to be sort of infamous for that, for these really high expectations that aren't exactly delivered. You have all these games that go into alpha and then don't get finished, or go into alpha and just aren't what people thought they would be. So we didn't even want to play around with the, releasing an alpha build and then a beta. We're going to release the game when it comes out. And actually, the demo is no longer available on the Kickstarter. That was a weekend thing that we did.
Oh, well, I'm glad I got a hand of it, because it was pretty cool.
Cool. Good to hear.
So, See No Evil, it is like an isometric puzzle game. Kind of reminds me a little bit like Bastion, except without the combat in it. And the game is mostly focused around sound. Now, how exactly do you plan on expanding upon that, and how does that work within the game itself?
Yeah, so a funny note is that I actually hadn't played Bastion until I was a little bit into development, and people kept saying that it reminded them of Bastion, so I had to check it out. And obviously, it's a wonderful game. Bastion is. But yeah, so the sound is a really interesting thing. It's actually evolved in a way that we didn't really expect it to. The original sort of concept was that you would be able to see the sound waves that you make when walking, and your only weapon would be your ability to scream. And we thought up like horns and enemies that could hear you, but it's really, really taken on its own thing, and the game's become something really cool. When we have like being able to rotate horns around, and enemies that get scared by sounds, and enemies that actually make sounds of their own, screaming back at you, and various things that sort of make the sound thing really complex but cool. It's really rewarding to, just do a single scream and then the puzzle plays out all on its own. And it's definitely a new thing, and that's something that I want to do with all of my games. I want to make things that are new and fresh. I enjoy shooting zombies, and I enjoy, going into space, but it's being done, and it's been done a lot. And so while I don't have any problem with those games, the games that I make, I want to have things that are new, and kind of catch your eye.
It's definitely good to see people moving more into sound. You've seen that a little bit in the past with a game like Mark of the Ninja, that while it is a 2D game, revolves so much around sound, and stealth games like the Thief series and Dishonored have been around sound. But you don't use sound in a way of using stealth. You use it in order to solve puzzles. What was the idea about using sound in that specific way, instead of your more traditional using it to just go around your enemies?
Yeah, when we started the game, this is sort of what I was talking about when I said it evolved into its own thing. Because when we started the game, we called it a stealth puzzle game. And that quickly got thrown out when we realized that people were trying to avoid the enemies from hearing sounds. And you really quickly learn when you're playing the game that the enemies have to hear your sounds for you to get through the puzzle. You have to use the sound to actually manipulate the world. And that's something that I can't take credit for. The game just did on its own, which is one of the beautiful parts about game dev. The game is, a part of the team. When you're testing the game, you kind of learn. You learn as much as you are working on it.
So you mentioned that you hadn't actually played the game Bastion until after you'd started the project. What were some of the inspirations that you originally had when you wanted to go into making See No Evil?
It's sort of a weird thing. It came from a lot of just a lot of thinking and playing games as sort of a separate thing. Like I said, I want to make games that are unique and interesting. And so See No Evil actually came out of a poem that I wrote quite a while back, just about sort of existentialism. And I was going through some of these things and trying to figure out ways that I could, sort of gamify them. And the poem was about people who are willing to sort of look at issues in the world and people that aren't. And so the poem was called See No Evil, and it eventually started to form in my mind the idea of a game where we took it very, very literally, of people that would literally close their eyes to the issues, and then the seer who was willing to address them. And I mean, like I've said before, the game really evolved on its own and became its own thing after that.
Well, listening to that, I can definitely understand a bit more about what was going on within the story of the game, since it does have a lot of those elements within it, and definitely tries to give you an idea that there's a bit more going on than what you're just necessarily seeing right in front of you. There's a bit more going on within the entire world.
Right. Yeah. It's very metaphorical. We also don't want to shove anything down the player's throat, and so we're trying to sort of let people get out of it what they want to. If you're willing to read into everything, and if you're willing to read all of the pieces of text and really listen to all of the narration, which is sort of a tough thing because there's a lot going on, you'll definitely get a lot more full story than if you're just playing through. But the game can be enjoyed just by working through the puzzles.
Now, See No Evil, of course, is taken off of the See No Evil, Hear No Evil, Speak No Evil kind of an idea. Are there any of the elements of those other two ideas of Hearing No Evil and Speaking No Evil within the game, or is it all mostly based around just the See No Evil premise?
Yeah, yes, definitely all of the other things are implemented, and I would go as far as to say smell no evil as well.
Smell No Evil.
There's a lot going on. We're definitely trying to take the sound idea and do as much with it as we can. And every time we add a new thing, every time we add something like lights that turn on and off, and like something that the player can step in and that makes his footsteps smell, so that the willingly blind can smell him. Every time we add something like that, it compounds on all the other things that we have and makes every puzzle more extreme and more challenging. So, I mean, it's gonna be a big game. It's gonna be a hard game. It's gonna have a lot of different elements that all kind of center back to the sound.
You just said it's going to be a big game. Do you mean as in the size of the game? Like how large of a game do you think that this will actually be? Will it have multiple worlds? I know it already has multiple levels.
Yeah, so there's going to be 4 chapters, and maybe big isn't the best word. It's good size for what we're doing. I'm really proud of what we're doing for the team that we have. We're hoping to do about 60 levels. And especially near the end, they start to get pretty tough. So, I mean, I've had testers play through the first 2 chapters and take something like an hour to 2 hours. And we have 2 more chapters, and the first 2 chapters are full of tutorials and a lot of the easier puzzles, and the last 2 chapters are full of very tough puzzles. So, I'm hoping that it'll be a relatively lengthy experience for what it is.
From the levels that I played in the demo, all the levels do seem to be a bit bite-sized. Now, do they get larger as the levels go on and he's getting to farther and farther levels, closer to the end of the game, or do they still stay around the same normal size but get a bit more complex in their design?
Yeah, so we have some bigger puzzles, but I'm definitely a fan of complexity in a sort of like presented in a simple way. So I think it's really, really easy to make really convoluted puzzles with tons of different mechanics everywhere and like a huge map full of stuff. It's really easy to make something complex in that way, but I think what's really beautiful and really elegant is when you can have, just 2 or 3 things in a level, and that can stump someone. So there are some bigger puzzles, but I think one of our core design theories is that there's an elegance to simplicity.
And I can definitely see that. Towards the end, I think it was like maybe the last puzzle in the demo. It took me a while to actually get around what I was supposed to do. Because up to that point, you hadn't actually been able to interact with the sound that you made. But in that particular puzzle, you actually had to block your own sound, which was definitely a really cool idea.
Yeah, something we're excited about is just the idea of not giving people tutorials where it says, walk in front of the sound wave, but instead just letting them experience the world where the sound acts in a very specific way, and then having them figure out how they can use that. Because there's nothing in the world up till that point that says that you can't block your sound waves. And actually, if you look at kind of the laws of the world, the sound stops when it hits a solid object, and so it makes sense that you can. So there's a lot of puzzles like that, and that's definitely, we threw that in the demo as sort of the boss battle, if you will. But that's just the start of the difficult puzzles.
Yeah, thankfully, though, you do have, like, some kind of a hint. It's not a outright do this to there, but it's a bit of a hint that you can decode to figure out what you need to do.
Right. And as you may have noticed throughout other parts of the game, things like the first level, we really don't like the idea of holding the player's hand, but instead just sort of giving them an idea or kind of hinting, sort of subliminal teaching. Because, I mean, no one likes to be told how to complete a thing. It's not fun, and that's sort of what a lot of games do right now, like press A to pick up the barrel. Mm-hmm. And that's fine, but it's not near as rewarding as like the first level of the demo, where the key is told to you, and it's pretty clear, but it takes people a second.
Now, the main thing with design like this is I want to know, do you worry about people who just don't kind of get it or don't kind of understand what it is that they're actually supposed to be doing? Have you had any experience with that so far?
Yeah, it's definitely not the easiest way to build a game. it's way easier to just, like give someone a manual or, have like pop-up text. It's much easier, but I don't think it's as fun. And so we're not taking the easy way out there. We're having a lot of testing, and that's what it takes. We obviously don't have a big team of testers, but for things like the first level and the level where you learn how to pull the crate, we've had countless numbers of people that I don't even know very well. I'm like, hey, you want to play my game? Had them over and just saw how they react to it. And slowly, as we work it and make it more obvious and less obvious and whatnot, we're hoping to find balances with those things. So like the first level is something that we've gotten pretty balanced. Like pretty much everyone that plays it at this point figures out what they need to do and kind of smiles when they do. The level where you learn to pull the crate is still one that we're working on to make it clearer, because some people, walk around a little bit before they figure out that they press E. But yeah, it takes testing. It's not as easy, but I think it's more rewarding.
Now, there are quite a few mechanics within the game already. You have the ability to scream, you have the ability to, whenever you walk around, you make sound vibrations from that. You can pull crates, press switches, move the horn things, as you said, in order to change the direction of which the noise you make goes in, and step on things that you make noise that way. Are there any mechanics within the game that we haven't gone over so far that you think would be something that people would be interested in that you want to go over right now?
I don't want to give everything away, because there are quite a few more things. Something I'm really excited about right now is the enemies that scream back at you. We call them bats, and they're actually looking for you by sending out these sound waves. And if the sound waves hit you or hit something moving, they'll get interested and go to investigate. But there's a lot more like that going on.
Kind of branching on from that, you did mention that like the last section of the last puzzle of the demo was sort of like the quote-unquote boss battle. Do you plan on having your traditional boss battles, or are they more going to be like that, in which it's going to be more of a obtuse or difficult puzzle instead of trying to defeat one particular enemy?
Yeah, there isn't really a one particular enemy. I mean, you have the voice, which is the woman speaking to you, but we're taking steps to have moments in the game that sort of break it up and provoke interest, and further the story. But we don't really have, it's not a combat-based game, so we don't have a big robot that comes down that you fight. We do have puzzles that get progressively harder, and we do have moments that kind of make you look at the game differently, and maybe take a little bit more time to further the story and take you into a different world. But it's not a combat game,
Something that I usually see in a game kind of like this would either be some kind of collectibles or maybe a time trial to see how quickly you can beat the particular levels. Is Xenoweave going to have anything like that, or is it more just going to be focused on the story?
Well, those are the sort of things that the Kickstarter is for. We can make a game that has a beginning and end without the Kickstarter, but things like, achievements, collectibles, general polish, making sure there aren't bugs, things like that are what we need the Kickstarter money for, so that we can have the time to do that. So it's sort of the difference between, like a snack and a meal. This Kickstarter will allow us to make something that is more full and has more to expand on.
Have you gone over much as to what you will be able to add, particularly, so you know exactly what you're going after, or are you kind of just waiting to see if the Kickstarter is successful or not before you start putting energy into trying to come up with extra things to put in?
Yeah, when the Kickstarter is fully funded, if it's before its end date, we'll announce stretch goals. We're not saying a whole lot of what exactly is going to be added other than that the game will be polished, because, again, we've seen too many Kickstarter campaigns where there's tons of things promised and they aren't delivered. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, what I can promise is that if we get the money, the game will be cleaner, it will be better, it will be bigger. But specific mechanics or specific things, we're trying to stay away from until we actually see it funded or see how much money we're going to have.
Now, this, like we said before a couple times, this is the first project that you and your team are venturing out on their own with, but you did previously work with another company. Could you talk about a little bit of what you did there, what games you worked on, help give people an idea of what you've been part of and what you've done previously?
Yeah, so I've been working as a 3D artist for quite a few years. Initially doing freelance work. I've worked for IC3D Media. They are a company funded by the Norwegian government on some public transit simulations. I've worked for various other smaller studios. I actually did a little bit of artwork on The Dead Linger, which is a Kickstarter game. And then I got the job at Trendy, and I worked on Dungeon Defenders 2. Very, very proud of the artistic achievements that game is having. It's a beautiful, beautiful game, and I'm super proud to be a part of the team. A lot of really incredible artists there. So up until this point, professionally, I've done a lot of artwork, and I've always had a passion for design, and so that's one of the reasons that I've broken out sort of early, because I just needed to be doing design and more than just making things pretty.
Right. So what all platforms is Xenoevo going to be available on?
It's officially going to be on PC and Mac. We would like to expand to Linux and see what else we can do, but again, that's a Kickstarter thing. It's another example of something that we can look into when we have the money. Not going to have any official announcements on that until we know what we can work with.
So, do you guys have any contacts? Twitter, Facebook, website, Greenlight campaign? I know there's a lot of Kickstarters who try to have a Greenlight campaign at the same time they have their normal Kickstarter campaign.
Yeah, we will have a Greenlight going up when the Kickstarter is funded. We have a Facebook page. We have a website, www.snegame.com. We obviously have the Kickstarter page. And we do have a Twitter as well.
All right. Is there anything you would like to say before we wrap up the interview?
No, I mean, helping give to the Kickstarter and just supporting us in general, sharing around the link is the most we can ask for. We're trying to make a game that is new and unique and means something, is a little bit more meaningful than your general experience, and we can't do it without you guys.
Well, thank you very much, Gabriel, for talking to me today about your Kickstarter for a puzzle game, See No Evil. And thank you, viewers, for watching. Keep in mind, these guys are only looking to raise $2,000. And when it comes to a lot of Kickstarters, that's not actually that much. So, if you can get these large Kickstarters funded, I can definitely see this. There's really no reason why See No Evil should not be able to get funded. So... thank you again, Gabriel, for talking to me. Thank you again, viewers, for watching. I have been MegapieMan, and I will talk to you guys later.
See ya.
3, 2...